Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion, focusing in on 99L and what's happening with that. The afternoon update here for August 25th, 2016. A visible satellite image shows you the very easy to find low-level vorticity maximum, or maxima, whatever you want to call it, the swirl. And this is like a fish out of water. Okay, you take a fish out of the water and the clock starts ticking towards the eventual demise of said fish. And that is exactly what we're seeing here. The longer this stays like this, and boy, if it just runs into Cuba, it's over. This isn't going to come back, I would say, with 95% certainty. But as it stands now, this is not healthy at all. Pretty big bust in the longer term for the European model, which was suggesting a possible hurricane impact for southeast Florida and then later on in the Gulf Coast states. Still not 100% that it won't happen, but it's getting pretty close to being likely that it's not going to happen. So let's take a look at what's causing this fish out of water syndrome. Well, the low pressure area is located, let's go back to the other map so make sure I have it. Yeah, it's just to the north of Haiti, which on here would be right there. There's Haiti. And so our system is located right in here. And let's see if I can zoom in on this nice and tight. Sure can. The magic of computers these days, I'll tell you what. Upper level winds cutting right across at roughly the 250 millibar level, fairly high in the atmosphere, decapitating this system, not allowing it to develop thunderstorms. And then there's also enough dry air in here that it's kind of blowing that across it as well. Very similar if you're making pasta. You put a bunch of spaghetti pasta into the pot and it starts to boil and it gets real frothy. You've seen that, and you don't want it to spill over the edge of the pot. You get a paper plate or something and you fan it. Well, that's pretty much what's happening here. You reduce the ability for air to rise when you fan that pasta bubbles off, and you're also blowing drier air into that, collapsing those bubbles, that frothy, boiling mess that can spill over the side and screw up your stovetop, right? Well, that's kind of what's happening here. The pasta is starting to really try to boil over. That's what this wants to do, is to create convection, but this injection of the dry air and the shear doesn't allow it to do so. And so, like fanning the old pasta bubbles there, down goes the convection and nothing can develop. So let's look at the different models just for fun here. And not just for fun, it's educational. So let's see what we've got. Interesting if this survives at all as a tropical wave, what might happen. The INCEP GFS ensemble track guidance from the 12Z run today. A lot of shifting into the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll have to wait and see if some of this energy survives and makes it over to the southeast Gulf. It might have to be watched there if upper level winds become more favorable. So a bunch of ifs there. The intensity, now this is a little interesting compared to where it's been. Look at this sort of slope that we have now. You remember yesterday it was kind of like that. Well, today it's definitely increasing that angle just a little bit. The overall intensity envelope closer to hurricane intensity, strong tropical storm. Don't worry about the blue and the purplish color. These really don't matter right now because we don't have a developed system. Those are kind of outliers. But the overall guidance envelope is tilted a little bit more towards trying to strengthen, especially after about 90 hours or so. And that's when conditions might improve. So we won't write this off completely, but the threat for a hurricane in South Florida, including the West Coast, up towards Naples and Fort Myers, appears to be lessening with each passing hour. And again, if this system gets tangled up over Cuba, the tropical wave itself may dissipate, and then that's it. We start over again, waiting for the next system. Nevertheless, this is the 18Z guidance package from a lot of the various models over here. And if you try to, let's see if we can pick out where the consensus, it's kind of hanging out in here, not very solid. It doesn't really carry it through. So you can see there's a lot of, I mean, look at this one, diving down towards Honduras of all places. So we're getting a disjointed system resulting in disjointed model guidance, and that's no surprise when you have something that looks as unhealthy as this does. So the European, which for run after run after run the last few days was developing this, let me start over so you can get this right, trying to come up here into the Bahamas, bend back to the west, and then somewhere over here look like they could get a nasty hurricane. That's what it's been showing, and then all along the GFS was not developing it much at all, and all the talk about that on social media, well, the GFS is terrible. The Euro did so well with Joaquin last year, taking it out, whereas the GFS wanted to bring it into the mid-Atlantic states, and whatever. The comparisons just were never ending, it seemed. Well, it looks like the European has, the ECMWF has come around towards what the GFS has been showing. So let's just take a look. And again, always want to make sure I credit Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com for programming his website and the code that he's had to come up with. The guy's from Alaska, and he's down here in Tallahassee studying tropical meteorology, and yet he's found the time to create these incredible maps that he puts on there for everybody to use, free of charge. So I want to make sure, in fact, he's got a donate button on his site. Help the boy finish his college education and chip in a few bucks here and there, all right? But really, he's done a great job, and we appreciate being able to show this because it helps to explain what's happening. And we can see the vorticity signature here on the initialization is rather poor, and that's pretty much what it is in real life. 24 hours out, and of course this is this morning's run, the 12Z, highly anticipated. This may be too far north right here. It might really just go on into Cuba. We'll have to wait and see. Finally, at 48 hours, I highly doubt that it's going to move up into the area near Andros Island here. More or less, I think that it's going to be further south into the Florida Straits proper. But nevertheless, going through the maps here, 72 hours, spread out vorticity overall, sprawling, unorganized system. 96 hours, there we go, it's trying to develop something right off the southwest coast. And there's Gaston for what it's worth, and Bermuda is right there. So not too much worry if you're in Bermuda, but the surf will be fantastic there if you can not break your neck on some of those rocks they have in Bermuda. Finally, at 120 hours out, this will be valid next Tuesday morning off the Tampa Bay area by 100 miles or so, maybe less than that, 50 miles probably, and headed towards maybe the Appalachia Bay up there. And then finally at day 6, coming into the Big Bend of Florida, but even this is not very strong, maybe a tropical storm. Now, if this comes to pass exactly, let's just say the Euro nailed it today, that this is what's going to happen. This is not a hurricane, probably, in this scenario, but it's also not something that you just say, that's no problem, who cares? You could still get storm surge up in that area, big storm surge prone region, the northeast part of the Gulf of Mexico, and what we call the Big Bend region, St. Marks, Florida, etc. Not good, okay? Cedar Key. So, and then the rainfall coming with this, there are still hazards and impacts. That's why our app is called Hurricane Impact. It's all about the impact when it's all said and done. Tracking out in the open ocean, that's one thing. But when they hit land is when it matters, right? For 99% of us, the other 1% that work in the maritime world, certainly it matters for them over the open ocean. But there's a whole other service and meteorological community that deals with that. And I deal with the landfall impacts of these systems. And so even this can be problematic, and people need to be aware of that. So we're not saying nothing's going to happen. It's starting to lean that way a little more, but we're not there yet. And so the HWRF, the 12Z, really doesn't do much with it until, ironically, about the same time that the European model starts developing it, and that's when it's sitting down here off the southwest coast of Florida. This is the 5-day position for the HWRF from this morning, and it's a decent hurricane, probably 981 millibars. And look, it's headed towards the Big Bend area. So that's interesting that there is that sort of agreement between the 5-day position of the Euro and the 5-day position of the HWRF. So something to watch, but unless this right here changes dramatically, I mean, look, there's Florida right there. It's going to be heading, I don't know. There's a chance that when I do this update tomorrow, I'll have to come up with some kind of an obituary for 99L, and we'll bury it 6 feet under, whatever. And hey, like I said, it's a fish out of water, and eventually if they stay out too long, you know what happens. Down the commode they go. Terrible analogy, but you get the idea. All right, that's all I've got for today. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning.